I'm Sage Tokach from Eagle Communications, and this is the Great Plains Theater. I am joined today, on my left, by Nick Wright and Jordan Ludy. We're here to tell you about the Great Plains Theater youth program, how it's evolved over the years, and what theater means to people in Abilene and beyond. So, can you guys tell me about your first theater experience with GPT?
Sure, I'll start. So I started my first interaction with the Great Plains Theater in 2004 with The Nerd. It was when I think I was 7 years old, and it was really awesome. So I don't remember it too well, but I know it was super monumental because it shaped the future of my life. So my parents, they started to get me involved with the theater after we went and saw Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So we actually came to the theater and saw that, and my parents were like, they had a blast, but they said that I could not sit down. I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to be up on stage that I made them go back and see it again. And so we came back and we saw that show again, and after that I was like, I have to get involved. And so we actually have a recording. My parents are such fun people. So they recorded my first audition, and I did a monologue from a poetry book, and I think I did a song, a church hymn, as my first audition song. And I got cast in The Nerd. I was a really honorary kid, and it's kind of funny. The very first thing I ever did in theater was come on stage in my underwear, because I had to wear this huge pair of boxers that were supposed to be my dad's, I think, in the show, and answer the phone with a dinosaur thing on my head. So that was the very first thing, and obviously it's just flowered since then.
How about you, Nick?
Well, my first experience with the Great Plains Theater, I went and also saw Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which was a lot better experience than I thought it was going to be. I mean, my mom kind of drugged me into it.
And that was the production that Jordan was in, right?
Yeah, that was the second round. We did that show twice.
And I ended up having a lot more fun with it than I thought I would. I think I saw it 2 or 3 more times, and then I don't want to say forgot about the theater, but I didn't do anything for a few more years. And then when I was in 6th grade, Kyler Chardine took me to one of the children's meetings, one of the meetings for playing great players, and really from then on I started becoming more involved, and eventually that December, I think it was 2011, 6th grade. Anyway, that December I auditioned for the best Christmas pageant ever, and that was my first show with the theater. And since then, I've been in the theater since then, yeah.
Yeah, so GPT started out as a professional theater, and so we've always had actors come in from all over the country, but it didn't start out with an education program. No. So can you guys tell me kind of how the education program started and how it's grown?
Yeah, so, I mean, tell me if this isn't correct, but Greg Crummins was our very first education director, and he came as an actor, right? Yeah, he was in a show with the Great Plains Theater. So she was just talking about how we're a professional equity company, and so we hire actors all throughout the country. And so Greg was one of those actors, and he came in, and he's always had an affinity for youth and for child theater, and he just wanted to see that involvement and interaction with the theater, and so he formed an education program here at Great Plains Theater, and ever since then we've had success in that, and he formed all these different programs and leadership within the youth, and I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, what types of programs or what types of things do you do in the education program?
Well, we've done a few things. We've done a lot of original works and music, and Greg was pretty heavy on involvement in everybody and getting your brain working. So we did improv, and we had cabarets, and a lot of student-led things that really boosted community.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I mean, so we've also done I know that coming into the theater, I was just really spastic and didn't really know how to channel my energy. I mean, I'm still just as spastic kind of, but the theater has helped me kind of focus on where that energy needs to go, and not just up on stage, but in every aspect of my life. I feel like I'm not as much all over the place. I am very focused and I'm intense, but because that I learned how to channel my energy, and that was all from all the programs that we started with the education program with Greg, just doing like little workshops. He's done like audition workshops. We've done like writing shows. We actually wrote a show, So my first interaction with Greg, one of the ones that was the most monumental for me was when he wrote his own musical called Mallrats, and we actually ended up doing it twice because it was just so fantastic. And I was in it both times, and like there was obviously such a change between the first and the second time, but they helped me kind of figure out what I want to do with my life. And so I mean, I'm going into theater and I want to focus on composition just as much as possible. And so kind of building off kind of how Greg influenced my life and how the education program, even after Greg, has changed me. We wrote this musical and performed it through the education department.
Yeah, so Jordan, you mentioned that the theater has helped you, I mean, within theater-related things, obviously, but also outside of theater. Nick, has it helped you in your daily life?
Well, yeah, I don't want to say, I guess going into 6th grade, I had already tried and played tackle football, which was an exciting time if you ever saw that. But really, I was kind of looking for something other than sports since that wasn't working out to do. And once I got into theater, it was really great to be able to be engaged physically and really mentally. My communication skills and basically a lot of my communication skills have really developed. And that's one of the most important things that we can use in life is being able to communicate with one another. As we get more tech involved, we still have to keep, being able to talk.
Yeah, and you've been working here, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Since probably 3 years ago, I started off with the concessions for the cinema. Volunteer basis before the fire, and then after the fire, when we got the cinema back in December this year, I started working, being paid, and it's been an incredible experience. So, on stage I get to communicate and express with actors and the audience, but I get basically continuous development when I get to be person to person with other people.
Yeah, so, and in addition to the education program and the cinema, we do have professional actors that come in for all the shows. So tell me about how you've interacted with some of the professional actors and how that's changed you as an artist and a person.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I'm going into professional theater, and when people ask me, like, what is your end goal? A lot of times I think back to how these professional actors have influenced my life and how much they've made me the person that I am. And I think, what do I want to do with this? And all I can think is I want to have the same impact on other people that these people have had on me.
Yeah, do you have any
specific
examples?
Yeah, so there was a time where people were in my family and I was thinking, how am I going to be able to pursue this as a career? And not that my confidence was low, but we just didn't know where we were going to go with it and where I was going to go with this profession and with this career. And so I was, expressing some of these feelings to some of the professional actors. I know Michael Misko was really instrumental kind of in shaping my life. And he's actually working right now with Stephen Schwartz, who's a really amazing composer who wrote Wicked and a bunch of other shows like Pippin and stuff. But Michael kind of persuaded me, but also really motivated me and my family, especially my parents, that if you have the drive and the work ethic and you have the love for this craft, then you can go out and do it. And so this is what I'm doing with my career, kind of coming full circle. So I said my first show that I ever saw here at Great Plains was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So as soon as this is over, working with the show that I'm doing right now, Annie Get Your Gun, I'm the music director for it. As soon as that's over, I'm actually going to a theater company in Missouri to work on Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I am I'm going to be one of those, working professional actors going into that field, which, I hope to work with local youth in that community, but building off of that, I hope to just make an influence and an impact on other people.
So Jordan mentioned that the theater has influenced his end goal. What's your end goal, Nick?
Well, right now, my goal is to really, not my end goal, but my current goal in relation to theater and how the professional actors really influenced me is my life after high school, at least, solidifying my choice to do either music theater or the technical aspects of theater. where to go or what I should be doing. And a lot of the professional actors have really been giving me a lot of very useful information because at this point I'm still kind of lost in that whole aspect. But my end goal for theater and what I'm doing is to really be honest, with any role I do is to really portray the character in an honest way.
I love that.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so hypothetical question.
Okay.
If GPT had never existed, what would your life be like right now? Where would you be?
Oh, I don't want to think about that. I know I wouldn't be here. I know I would not be here. I don't know what. I don't know.
I wouldn't be playing sports.
You wouldn't be playing
Still
sports?
wouldn't be playing sports. Yeah, I definitely obviously wouldn't be going into the profession that I'm going into, and I don't think I would love what I'm doing in my future and who I am, I guess, because I kind of found out that theater is who I am, and without the theater, I don't know who I would be. And now I feel like I can go into every aspect and say, I know what I'm good at, and I know where I want to take myself. And without the theater, I think I just wouldn't know or have any confidence in myself and in my future and in my goals and in my relationships with others. So.
I think if I didn't have the influence of the theater that, when I became an adult and started adulting, I wouldn't be doing the things that I love to do every day. And I think that that just isn't, for me, a healthy way to live. I think, I'm fine with all the academic and type things, but it just wouldn't make me happy, so.
Well, good thing we don't have to think about that.
Good thing. Yeah.
Do you guys have any stories from experiences at GPT in the education program or not that you want to share? Just any fun memories that you have?
Well, there's this.
There's so many.
There's this interesting character in the youth program named Peter Jennings. Peter Jennings. What a guy. We've got a few stories, don't we, Jordan?
Oh, yeah.
Sage.
He's awesome.
A few of my favorites is from when we did the show, 100 Dresses. Mm-hmm. I actually have two stories from that. Peter had the habit of putting his pants on backwards. Yeah.
What kind of pants?
Jeans. Peter would put his jeans on backwards all the time and come out on stage like that. And we also had a screen door that we would open up, and it was a push door, It was a push door. So Peter, the first time I think he used it, he pulled on it. And, you find out when it's a push door, not a pull door, to use it the correct way next time. And I think 3 or 4 more times he'd pull on it, and he about broke the door.
I remember, so I've always been just, like I was talking about my energy earlier, like my feet, I move around like crazy, especially on stage, and people used to get on me all the time. They'd be like, stand still, Jordan. And so one time I remember I was cast in A Secret Garden as a character in a wheelchair. And it was so funny because like I had to sit down the whole time, but my feet would just like shake in the wheelchair, and they were like, Jordan, you can't move your feet, like they're paralyzed. And so I was like, and that was a fun thing to figure out, was do not move your feet like crazy. And I also, in that show, I went on stage without my pants on because I forgot to put them on. So I had to sit under a blanket when I was on the wheelchair, and there was a moment where they took me off the blanket, and I sat on the guy's shoulders, and they took the blanket off, and I just was in my underwear. And it was like during a show. And there were a bunch of kids in the audience.
Yeah.
Honestly, that show was crazy because that was also the show where I was really young during this show. I was like 9, but my whole classmates all came to see me in the show, and they were there and they were like screaming in the audience. They were like, Jordan! And I was up on stage like waving at them like an idiot. And then I was like, I forgot my line, and so I just like kind of like sat up and was like, I forgot my line. Like, really loudly to the other people on the stage. Yeah,
grown so much.
I've grown so much since then, yeah. It was the loudest whisper I've ever done.
And Nick, what was your first show?
My first show was
Best Christmas pageant ever?
Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, how was that?
That was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a really big cast, and
It was.
I remember casting it. They had, they had the local auditions, but specifically for this show, they had auditions more towards kids, since they needed like a buttload of kids, like 15 or 20 kids. And that was a lot of fun, and I had like 4 lines. So really coming up to my lines, in my head I'd be saying that person's lines and that person's line, and then my line. And then basically I had the whole show memorized about.
Well, so we just did last year, in last year's season for the youth program, we did Godspell. And I was the music director of that, and Nick Wright was Jesus in that show. It's a Stephen Schwartz show, which I was talking about earlier. I don't know if you have any stories about that. He was the main character in that show, and he did an awesome job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Godspell was a lot of work. Being Jesus, that's a pretty high role
Yeah,
there.
that's a big shoes to fill.
But I'd say one of the most challenging aspects of Godspell was being on stage all the time. So you never really had a break to really kind of collect yourself.
Yeah.
And, luckily we had rehearsed it so many times in that way of, never leaving stage, that everybody, including myself, kind of got used to, the mental hardship and the physical aspects of it. But Godspell was a lot of fun, especially being Jesus. That was cool.
That was an
that's great.
awesome experience.
So if there are people out there that might be interested in joining the Great Plains Theater, or participating in one of the camps or something, what would you say to them?
Do it.
Do it.
Obviously, yeah, do it. I mean, the biggest thing you have to do, the biggest barrier you have to overcome is just getting yourself involved and having the confidence to put yourself out there. I mean, once you get there to the camp, I feel like there's such a fundamental basis where you're building people up with the structure of the camps that we have. Like, we approach theater from such a non-existent talent at the beginning basis, and building people up from there. And so the biggest hurdle you have to overcome is signing yourself up and getting involved. And that was what my family had to overcome, is they were like, well, we're just going to sign Jordan up for an audition, and look where I am now. I mean, I was some unruly, crazy, spastic kid, and I don't know, I've grown so much, and it was all because of, I remember sitting down and my parents being like, do you want to audition for this? And my parents, of course, are the people that made cookies for every single rehearsal, and so they were like, we want to support you if you want to do this. And it's never easy. I mean, every time that I audition for something, it has to be all right, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to give it all I've got. And so that's all you can do, really. And that's all my advice that I can give, is just go and expect to have fun, because you're going to.
Okay, so one final statement about why the Great Plains Theater is an important asset to Abilene. It's a big question.
Yeah, I said write an essay.
Well, really, I think it, for Abilene being a small town, in the middle of the United States, it really brings the culture from so many different places in the country to be able to come to this little hot spot and to be able to, expose local residents and other people to different types of art, and
Yeah.
it's really bringing in a lot more culture other than our local.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, so Nick was talking earlier about how there were 25 kids in Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just one show. We've done so many shows here with youth involved that we've touched so many people's lives, I think. And so I have kept a record of every single playbill for every show that I've ever been in. And I was looking through them again in my first year at college, and thinking back to every single person that was ever involved in the theater, and kind of remembering how they were on the very first day of rehearsal, and kind of how they were going out, and how the progress they made just within that one show. And then you see them during their second show that they do, and you're like, they were really good in this show. like they really came a long way during their first show. And I mean, you see Nick and I here, two people that, and Sage, I mean, all three of us really love theater and we can just speak wonders about the influence that it's made on all of our lives. And there's just, behind every single one of us, there's, 15 people, and behind every single one of them, there's 15 more people. And everything is, this interconnected tree with all these lives that theater in Abilene has touched. And I just really think it's so important to have that tree reach as many people as we can. This is a silly metaphor, but but I mean,
No, you're right,
it's so important. And I mean, my sister tried a show and she hated it, but
she tried it.
But she told me that the other day she was like, that was a lot of fun. I didn't want to do it ever again, but it was such a good experience. And my brother did shows for a while. I mean, did Rogan ever do anything?
He did some 4-H shows.
Fiona was in shows
Yeah,
and
yeah.
still does stuff at the theater. I mean, there's just, everyone is connected to theater
Yeah.
somehow. And you have to make that connection as strong as you can if you want to get as much benefit from it.
Well, thank you guys one more time. This is Jordan Ludy. This is Nick Wright. This is the Great Plains Theater. And I'm Sage Tokach for Eagle Communications.